Hey everyone, happy Black Girl Freedom Week. What a beautiful week it has been in the middle of what the Movement for Black Lives calls Black Futures Month. Perfect, a perfect reference for today's conversation, Black Futures. So I'm so thrilled to be here today in support of the hashtag 1 billion for Black Girls campaign and the Black Girl Freedom Fund. My name is Kelly McCreary, and I am an actor. I've appeared on stage and screen, and I have had the amazing privilege of playing Dr. Maggie Pierce on Grey's Anatomy for the past 7 seasons. I am also a producer, and I like to keep busy doing everything I can to uplift the voices of Black women and girls. So here I am today, so excited to have this conversation. So, Black Girl Freedom Week is happening because of actually this day today. This day, February 18th, is Audre Lorde's birthday and Toni Morrison's birthday. And it's the reason why, in addition to Black History Month being the institution that it is, this specific date it was chosen to build this week of events around. So which is perfect again for this conversation because Audre Lorde, the poet, the writer, the philosopher, the thinker, the activist that we know, she was first published at the tender age of 15 in 17 magazine, went on to be an advocate for the artistic education of young people. So I'm so excited about this conversation today because I'll be joined by Danielle Nolan and Eva Rain. We are going to be talking about everything that is possible when Black girls are able to achieve their full creative potential and realize our full artistic visions, just as Audre and Toni and all of our wonderful foremothers desired for us and created for themselves in their lives. So, before we get started with our conversation, I want our guests, Danielle and Eva, to introduce themselves. Just the nuts and bolts first, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty a little bit later. I'll start with Danielle. Tell me your name, your age, the organization you work for, if there is one, and where you're from.
Okay, just to start, I just want to say I'm really excited for this conversation, and I just want to say Happy Black Girl Freedom Week to both of you. My name is Danielle. I'm 20 years old. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm with A Long Walk Home. It's an organization based here in Chicago, and I'm a photographer.
Awesome, awesome. It's wonderful to have you here with us, Danielle. Eva, please take it away. Tell me your name, your age, the organization or multiple organizations you're working with, and where you're from.
Yeah, my name is Eva Rain. I am 24 years old from St. Louis, Missouri, but currently in Brooklyn, New York. I work at the Marsha P. Johnson Institute, have a column with the LGBTQ publication Them that focuses on the beauty and strength of Black trans life. And I'm a film fellow with the organization Queer Art. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. It's so wonderful to have you both here in this conversation where we talk about the power of finding our artistic voices as we grow into our fully realized, actualized selves as Black women and girls. So, okay, let's start with Eva. Tell me what kind of artist are you? I know you just told us that you are a writer, you're an actor. That's sort of the title, but like, what's your approach? How do you think of the kind of art that you make in a more maybe esoteric kind of sense?
Yeah, a lot of the creative pursuits that I have are really all focused on intentional representation of Black trans women. A lot of the stories that we see focus so much on the deaths that happen to Black trans women, the violence that happens to us in the Deep South, the far North, and also in the Midwest where I'm from. And a lot of the writing that I focus on is really about uplifting our lives, uplifting the art that we make, and I am also working cinematically to create a film that's going to focus on the beauty of friendships among Black trans women. And yeah, like that's really like my biggest focus. Just trying to shift the narrative, not trying to gloss over anything that happens to us, but also just trying to add context to our lives and trying to add more fullness to our lives. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, that's so interesting. I feel like there's such this tension between the reality that in our lives, of course, there is, you know, there are circumstances that are not ideal to say the least, tragic at worst. But there is more, and we want to know the full experience. We want to create enough space so that no story starts to feel stereotypical, right? No story starts to become like a generalized Black trans story because they're so varied and they're so rich and so full that we need to create space for them all. I love that. Danielle, tell me about where you enter this, where your art and activism combine to create the kind of the work that you do.
Okay, so I started my photography when I graduated eighth grade in 2015, and I'm still taking pictures now. Um, Through my art, I like to tell the story of Black women and girls whose stories just aren't heard enough. For example, the first photo that I ever took was of my sister Lily, who was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia at birth. And you know, you just don't hear enough about sickle cell. So I wanted to take those pictures to shine a light on her story. More recently, I collaborated with A Long Walk Home and Netflix on creating art responses to a documentary that's now on Netflix called A Love Song for Latasha. It's based on the death of Latasha Harlins, a 15-year-old girl who was killed in 1991 in LA at a corner store. And it was just, you know, it was based on just racial prejudice. And I just want to make sure that both of these stories are heard. Um, and yeah, I just think of myself as an artist activist, and I've like traveled all across, well, not all across, I'm not, you know, I'm not there yet, but I've traveled to different places across the country and even outside the country in Kathmandu, Nepal.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like at such a young age for both of you, you have such a clear vision of what it is that you are trying to accomplish at this, at least at this stage of your life, you know, and I'm wondering if you could each give me some insight into someone who first inspired you or sort of encouraged you at a young age to clear to get clear and also to have the confidence that it takes, right, to step into a life uh, as an artist, not just professionally, but to really let your insides out, you know, and really be free to show us and let us know and educate us and enlighten and inspire us with who you are. Eva, do you want to tell us?
Yeah, I would say the one person who's really had a major impact on my life is Janet Mock. When I read her memoir, Redefining Realness, it actually took me a couple of years just to actually finish the book because every time I opened it, there were all of these feelings that I could never quite put into words.
Mm.
And there was just a lot of shame that I had to work through based off of my life and what was going on at the time. And when I read her book, I could finally put everything in I could finally put things in to words and I could express everything to everyone else. And that's kind of how I started my journey into womanhood. Uh, Granted, I think a transition is really a lifelong process. Um, but I know that I wasn't able to outwardly express anything to anybody about what was going on in my life and even in my family until I read her book and I watched all of her interviews. And eventually I was able to meet her, and that was one of the best days of my life, really. So yeah, Janet is one of my major heroes for sure. Yeah.
I just feel like that speaks so much to the power of what we're doing here, right? This idea that like when we create art, we create an entry point for others to get into that space too. So it was Janet for you. Danielle, tell me about your early experiences and sparks.
So I mentioned that I've been taking pictures since I graduated eighth grade, and it's because of one of the founders of A Long Walk Home, Scheherazade Tillett, who's an amazing photographer. She's the first person to put a camera in my hand, and I haven't put it down since. She's taught me so much about just social justice and how to become more of a leader in my school, my community, and even in my household. She's without We call her Miss Tillett. Without Miss Tillett, I swear I would not be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be able to be here. She just taught me everything that I knew. So, and she's my mentor. She's like never given up on me, and I just really appreciate that from her. Yeah, Miss Tillett, Scheherazade Tillett is my reason. That's my inspo.
I love that. I love that. And what's just so amazing about this is that you are doing that for other people right now, and you won't even know it. You may not even know it for a minute, but just want to put that out there. Okay. All right. So we sort of already touched on this a little bit, but I want to hear. I'm sure we could talk all day about it. So I'd love to hear you both expand on what you feel like the narratives about Black girls that are missing from public art and from media, and where your work fits into that, where you need support in being able to expand further in doing that. Danielle?
So I think one of the narratives that's missing in the media pertaining to Black girls is it's just the lack of representation of dark skinned girls. Me growing up a dark skinned girl, I've always looked for that. And while we do have a few, I just think there should be more, because there are like lots of Black women in TV, but they don't necessarily look like me. And I think that's important. Just like not even just TV, art in general. And I just think that having more dark skinned girls or just more girls that don't look like the typical Black girl that you would see on TV. We just need, we need Black girls on TV that look like us, when I just think the best thing when I'm talking to my friends and I see like a new celebrity, well, it's not a new celebrity, but someone that's like, famous, I'm like, she just look like a typical Black girl. And that's what I like about her. So I think that's the one thing that's really missing. Well,
I love,
one of the
yeah.
things.
I feel like that's such a, there's something, when we talk about representation mattering, I feel like that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but in a really personal way, I think you just hit on something that's kind of at the essence of what we're all looking for, right? Is to feel like, even we might think we're very, very special, very unique, because of course we are, but like there's something about just seeing maybe the mundane part of your life and your experience and the unglamorous, undressed up, simple, interior, quiet life inside of you that you live being sort of validated on the screen. There is such tremendous power in capturing an image, telling, creating a film that reflects those interior moments back at somebody who shares them, right? So absolutely, and there obviously has been a tremendous history of colorism in every industry, but Hollywood is no exception. The art space, various art spaces are no exception. So absolutely, it's all about creating more and more and more and more space. Eva, tell me about some of the narratives that you think are missing that you'd like to contribute to.
Yeah, I really want to show happiness among Black women, Oftentimes we always see like these tragic plights, and There are multiple positive representations out there. Grey's is one of my favorite shows also. My sister is one of your biggest fans. She would kill me if I didn't say that right now. Uh,
Hey,
um,
sister.
and I really want to show more happiness. I want to show more joy. I want to show more Black trans joy. Pose is one of my favorite shows, and I'm so, so happy that it exists, but we also need more. We need more and more and more of these positive narratives that are going to show what happens through the power of love among all Black women. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love this. Okay, so Danielle, tell me about why art is important when it comes to Black girl freedom. Like how do we locate art in this conversation around access and political power and everything that we talk about when we talk about Black girl freedom, visibility? Why is art important? What is it? What role does it play in the larger quest for the justice that we see?
I think as Black girls, it's really hard for us to express ourselves with just words. Words, they say a lot. People can hear words, and you can forget words. But with art, it's just certain things about art that you just can't forget. When you see a photo that you really love, you're going to remember that photo. When you hear a poem that just really resonates with you, you're going to remember it. And I think through art, I think Black girls have more freedom and they just kind of humanize themselves through art. And what I mean by that is often Black girls are looked at as objects. We're not looked at as actual human beings. So I think art is giving Black girls the chance to humanize themselves and be portrayed the way that they want to be portrayed in the media. And it just gives them the opportunity to get their voices heard and to be seen the way that they would like to be represented.
Yeah. I when you say that about our these are being sort of objectified, I think about the the way that like we're objectified in a super positive light and in a super negative light, right? But in some ways, right? We've got the Stacey Abrams and Amanda Gormans and who we absolutely love and admire and set up on these pedestals, the Janet Mox, the Laverne Cox. We put them up on these pedestals and where they belong. and and then we see the opposite end of that spectrum, and we realize that like in the middle there's just a whole world of experience that kind of goes that's kind of taken for granted. That like, oh, I think Dr. Monique Morris the other day said something like, it's kind of just assumed that everybody else is fine, everybody in the middle is just kind of fine, right? And our there's a lack of interest in what it takes for us to thrive, survive, have joy, manage on a day to day. And where there's that absence of interest, there is a real challenge to do those things, to survive and thrive, and so when we create this art that, as you said, Danielle, maybe sears an experience of a person into your heart, into your memory, into your spirit, you have a better chance at at remembering the people in those spaces in between the exalted and those who are really truly struggling. Eva, what art when it comes to Black girl freedom? Where do you see it? Or sorry, when it comes to Black girl freedom, where do you see the art playing a role?
I really see freedom. I see art playing a role in our freedom by it really just gives us a voice. Oftentimes Black girls are silenced throughout our lives from a very, very early age. Whether we're cis or trans, we're oftentimes told that how we feel, uh, express any emotion is deviant, you know, and art is a direct counterattack on that type of ideology that just keeps us all down. You know, I think there is a reason that there's a great number of Black women who are so powerful through their art, through their music, through their fashion, and why everyone is always taking from the things that we do. It's literally because when you're told that you can't let out these feelings, the moment that you can, it's like this very like radical act to just be yourself, to just like let go of all these false notions that you were told throughout your life. And yeah, I think art is the key to all of that. Yeah.
You just said a word. It's so true. Like, I mean, who here was told at a young age that they were too much for someone to process? Exactly, right? Right? And so, I don't know if it was this way for you, but I know for me, and it's true for even my some of my siblings, as soon as we entered a space where somebody could handle what we brought, there was an apparatus, there was a dance floor, there was a stage, there was a canvas to handle that. It was the first space that was able to hold that for us, and we experienced a kind of personal freedom first in spaces where there was art, right? So, yeah, completely. Gosh, you guys, this is amazing. So, I want to just let's just get all the way real. We're here doing Black Girl Freedom Week, in conjunction with this campaign to raise $1 billion over 10 years, 10 million bucks a year. Wait a minute, is that $1 million? I can't do math. Let me.
I can't do it either. I was
100 million a year. 100 million. Um, which, considering the numbers that we hear thrown around for all kinds of things, right? The military, the infrastructure, this and that. It sounds to me like a drop in the bucket, especially over 10 years. Um, and so I'm wondering, if you had access to those kinds of resources, um, what would you create? What kind of art, what kind of institutions, what kind of services, what would you like to see employed within your community, Eva?
One thing I would want is I would want every Black girl to be housed. You know, especially all of my Black trans sisters. I would want all of us to have a safe place to live that's also safe. Oftentimes, even just having a home doesn't mean that it's a safe home. It doesn't mean that you feel safe walking outside your front door. I would want all of my Black trans sisters to feel safe just walking down the street, to grab a bite to eat, to like get a soda from the corner store or whatever. I would want all of us to have the resources that we need to create the art that we want, and also to connect among all of us. At the Marsha P. Johnson Institute, right now we have a COVID relief fund that is giving out money to Black trans folks in need across the whole nation. And I would want to see a world where a fund like that doesn't even need to be a thing. I would I would I would want to see a world where we're not seeing all of these headlines saying, "Oh, this year is like the deadliest year for Black trans murders." At the Institute, we have a campaign called called More Than a Number. And that is basically trying to redirect focus on calling all of these Black bodies numbers and actually talking about the names, talking about the lives, talking about what's really going on in all of our, all of our neighborhoods that are causing all of these murders. I want to see a world where none of it has to be a thing because everyone's just taken care of. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. I mean, I think part of the visibility question, part of the representation question, is really about like this. It sounds so basic, but just like seeing us, so that when you hear these numbers, you can associate that with an actual human being's experience of the world. And even and the reality is that it's like maybe we don't want to grapple with the parts of these experiences that this society, which we all are members of, contributes to the harm that has come to them, that makes them, that turns us into numbers, and I love that as a vision because it's like it's most difficult things have simple solutions. They're not easy, right? But I'm not saying that it's easy to get there, but the solution that you're suggesting of like enabling people to be open to hearing and digesting, metabolizing these stories that make it clear that we are human walking the same path through this life or hoping to walk the same path, it's simple, just see our humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Eva. Danielle, what would you do with $1 billion?
It's so much money, but I have a couple of things. So I think it's great that Eva brought up the COVID relief fund because that's what I thought too, specifically for Black girls and women. And I would also like to implement art programs such like the ones that I was in into under-resourced high schools, because I just think it's so important. I just, even if you aren't like the typical artist, I think it's still important to learn how art can help you, like get your voice heard and help you get out there. And I just think everybody needs a Miss Tillett, everybody needs a Danielle, everybody needs a Kelly, everybody needs a Eva, So I think that's important. And lastly, I would also implement sexual health and sexual reproduction classes in schools because I didn't have one at all. Like I learned everything that I learned with Miss Tillett through A Long Walk Home. So I think it's important that everyone, I just think everyone should have the opportunity to learn about themselves, about their bodies, about topics such as sex that people really don't want to talk about in school, but it has to happen. Yeah, those are my 3 things.
I love that. I the older I get, the more strange I find it that women's bodies are treated as these sort of aberrations. Like they're just like, it's like men but different. It's like men but wrong, or anybody's bodies are treated like that. And that, that there is this idea that that for some people, what happens to your body is not worth talking about or investigating, or for you to even understand. There's no, easily accessible books to read. The conversations about it are taboo. That's just, it's more and more wild to me. The older I get, the more I'm like, how come I didn't know this about my body? Yeah. It's crazy. So I'm gonna we're just about to run out of time. I think we've got maybe another 5 minutes or so. And so I just want to open the floor to both of you to share anything else that's sort of burning on your mind about, I don't know if it's somebody that you'd like to thank, somebody that you'd like to, ask for something, and just, speak up and share anything in these last few minutes that we have that you want us to hear about.
I have something, but it's like a question for you. It's a monologue that you had in Grey's Anatomy in one of the most recent seasons, and it's the episode where there was a sex trafficker in the hospital. And I just wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about your experience with that scene, because when I watched it, chill bumps immediately, eyes watering, tearing up a little bit, just because it felt so special. You don't really see stuff like that on TV. And it really surprised me that it was like on Grey's Anatomy. I was like, whoa, like we stepping out the hospital for a minute. That was great. So I just wanted to know how you felt about like that monologue, how you felt acting it out, and anything else you want to share about it.
Thank you for that question. I love talking about this because I had one of the most exciting collaborative experiences working with the writer of the episode, actually the whole writer's room, the from the top down. From the very beginning of the season, when we learned that we were going to be setting this season of Grey's Anatomy in the very, very almost hyper realistic context of COVID, the COVID world reality that we're living in now, I said, well, look, Maggie Pierce is a Black doctor. She's a Black woman doctor. She's a young Black woman doctor. And the way that she is going to be processing what is happening in this time is unique to that identity, right? And I was so thrilled that they agreed with me, saw that. And so when the trafficking storyline came along, which was a continuation from a storyline that we had started last season, I just felt like, what they had written, what they had created, and the way that they had cast it, right? They cast two young Black girls and two Black women to play their moms. And, it was just very clear to me, like, this is their experience, even of trafficking, of a circumstance already as extreme and foreign to a lot of people, as that is going to be even more marginalized because of their physical identities too. So, just with those kinds of conversations in mind, our writer Felicia Pride, who is amazing for that episode, she made sure that was part of what was addressed and part of how Maggie was metabolizing the experience of having these patients and their moms in the hospital. And it's true that on Grey's we have not necessarily approached things like that head on, but I like to think that having been on the air for 17 seasons, y'all, we and having been on the air as like one of the pioneers in modern television for a representation, I feel like the show created enough space for us to be able to go directly head on after 17 seasons like that. I feel like we earned this is my personal opinion. I cannot speak on behalf of anybody else in Shondaland, and I don't mean to. But I really did kind of feel like free, saying like our audience, I think they trust us and we can trust them to be able to receive this story in a more direct way than we might normally have gone at it. So it was really wonderful. On top of that, on a somewhat personal note, my husband directed that episode. So I got to really be immersed, in that at home too. We talked about how to approach that scene, how to build out the other scenes in the episode. I lived with my collaborator while we were doing that. Normally, you just get a little bit of time on set with that person, so it was. I'm very very proud of that episode. So thank you for bringing that
I'm
up.
proud of it too. That was
Thank you.
really was.
Thank you so much. Well, we have a couple of more minutes. And so, Eva, unless you wanted to answer that question too, Eva, and throw out anything else last minute that you wanted to let people know, share, ask, etc.
Oh gosh.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I'll come back to you because I do have another question for both of you. Ready?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna let I won't point to each of you. You'll each whoever wants to jump in can do so. What is your Black girl freedom dream?
Okay. Eva spoke a little bit about this earlier, but my biggest dream, my biggest want for Black girls is just to be happy. I think everyone deserves to feel that emotion. And we aren't allowed to, we have like small snippets of happiness throughout our lives, but I just think our lives should be full of happiness, you know? So, yeah, my only dream, my only wish, hope, just happiness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. I couldn't really agree more. That is my biggest hope, my biggest dream. I think like through the media that I've seen, through the people that I've seen in the media also, I've learned that happiness is possible.
Mm.
And I want to get to a point in the world where that doesn't even have to be something that someone looks at as like a hypothetical reality, but it just is. I don't want it to be something that you have to achieve. I want happiness for Black girls to just be the constant, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Thank
about you, Kelly? I'm interested to know what you think.
This is gonna sound a little bit weird. So let me
Mm-hmm.
I feel like because in some from someone, most of us have gotten the speech about working twice as hard to get half as far, right? And so for Black girls, it is particularly difficult and frightening to take risks, to fail, um, because a story, an often negative story, gets constructed around our ability to succeed, our intelligence, maybe our talent. When we have moments of failure or challenge, um, and yet failure, falling down and getting back up is critical to being able to move forward and develop as a human being, as an artist. You've got to be able to make a mistake, get back up, and be supported on the way up too, right? To learn that you are resilient, to learn that like uh, you don't have to fear. You don't have to be perfect in order to be able to try new things. Find out who you are, who you like, where you want to be, and I think sometimes that the expectations and the strain and the need to get it right the first time can be so profound for us. For some of us, not all of us, obviously, we are not a monolith. That I would like to. Part of my dream, at least part of it, is to be able to see more mistakes, more failures, just because it means that you tried, you took a step, you got out of your comfort zone, right? And that is that those moments create opportunities for growth that are just full of infinite possibility. And that is what I wish for us to be able to live out our full possibility and potential. So I think I think that pretty much does it for us today. I thank you so much for spending this time with me, with all of us. Danielle, where can we find your work? Where can we keep up with you? What do you want us to be able to support, and how do we find it?
So I think I'm like I just represent A Long Walk Home, and that's where most of my work will be posted. So just following A Long Walk Home on any social medias, that would be perfect. And just look out. I just see really big things for myself. So just look out for
Yes. Eva.
Definitely follow the Marsha P. Johnson Institute at MPJI Institute across all socials. And if you want to know more about me, follow me at Miss Eva Rain. That's just MS Eva Rain on Instagram and Twitter. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, ladies. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of Black Girl Freedom Week, and may you carry it into the rest of your year and into your lives. And I hope we'll see you next time.
I hope I see you too. Bye.
Bye.